Alrighty, hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for those of you who are joining us today for SmartSimple's donor portal for community foundations. Hope you're having a wonderful sunny Tuesday. My name is Jeff Cook, Marketing Specialist here at SmartSimple. Alright, so before we begin, there are just a couple housekeeping items I'd like to cover. This webinar will be recorded and a recording will be made available in a couple days afterwards. You're most welcome and encouraged to ask your questions over the course of the webinar by typing them into the Q&A box in the Zoom webinar console. We'll be sure to address all of them after the demo. All right, so I'm joined by Bob Longworth for this webinar. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, everyone.
Hey, thanks. He's worked closely with a handful of community foundations to define the functionality that they've needed and built the donor portal that you'll be seeing today. And here's what the agenda looks like. We'll first start off with a brief overview of SmartSimple before we go straight into talking about some of the features new to the donor portal and how to leverage them to better manage and engage your donors with greater effect and efficiency. From there, Bob's going to do a quick demo to show some of the features we talked about and how they're manifested in the donor portal. Then we'll wrap things up with some Q&A. So let's begin. So for those of you who aren't aware of what SmartSimple does, let me just sort of set the foundation first. We've been in operation for over 15 years, operating integrated cloud-based grants and donor management software to not only community foundations, but also private and family foundations, the Fortune 100, and government agencies across the world. We often say that our clients come to us for the technology and stay for the relationship. Being the only vendor in our space offering live technical support 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. From our perspective, what makes us stand out from other vendors in the space is our perfected balance between technology and support, which we're confident you'll be pressed to find elsewhere. Our unique approach has led us to build a tight-knit community of over 300 clients who support over 115,000 users every month in nearly 200 countries across the globe. All right, so just to set the context as to why we developed the donor portal for community foundations, according to a report published by the Monitor Institute titled "What's Next for Community Philanthropy," the status quo is no longer an option for community foundations. But why is that so? Well, the report goes on to say that innovative community foundations are bucking the status quo by challenging orthodoxies and understanding and prioritizing which roles are really core to the organization. The old way of operating is no longer an option as donors seek to become increasingly engaged in their philanthropy. And this is especially true as community foundations aim to engage new generational demographic cohorts like the millennials and Generation Z, who are mobile device first, prefer to build trust through transparency, and choose to give digitally over other traditional methods. And this is where SmartSimple comes in. So I'll leave it there and then have Bob take over, showing you around the donor portal. All right, Bob.
All right, thanks, Jeff. So moving on to the next slide, we wanted to talk a little bit about two aspects that we will be showing you. One side is going to be what the foundation staff will be able to do, and then we'll also talk about what the donor portal itself would look like. So first off, we have the community foundation staff, and really what we want to be able to achieve with this portal is to make their life easier. We understand that there's often a high volume of requests that come in, so the goal is to make it as efficient as possible for your staff. Beyond that, we want to give your staff a full 360 view of your donor engagement with your organization, including full, robust CRM functionality, automation of the vetting of the DAF requests, interfund transfers, all the other sort of requests that come in from your donors. The portals can be configured and branded to your unique needs so that it matches with your branding, your corporate branding as well. Beyond that, we want to make it super easy for your staff to promote local causes and nonprofits to the donors so that it's really easy for the donors to engage, and you're presenting them with lots of content. Again, the key to get them to spend that money that they have in their donor advised funds. And beyond that, we also have full integration with accounting systems and other cloud software that you might need to use. So then moving on to the donor side of things, likewise, we want to give your donors a 360 view of their funds, their giving history, and all of the impact that they've had within their community. We want to make it easy for them to contribute new gifts, so add money to their funds or to your community foundation's funds, submit their DAF requests and grant recommendations, as well as perhaps move money around between their different funds and your own. And something that might be new for some of you is to actually contribute to applications that have come in through part of your competitive granting cycle. So we'll show you a little bit more of that in a second. So now we want to move over to actually do the donor portal, and I'm going to now share my screen so that you can see what we have set up. So as I mentioned, we will be looking at two different roles, and we will switch a little bit between one and the other, and I'll remind you when we have moved from the donor portal to the staff portal as well. So what we're looking at right now is the donor portal. So the donor advisor would be logging in and seeing an interface something like this. So for those of you that are not really familiar with SmartSimple, this is a platform that's very configurable. So any of the words that you see on the screen, for example, can be changed to match the exact terminology that you use at your community foundation. That being said, let me just walk you through some of the different features that we have set up here. So starting off, I'm just going to go under my name and go to look at my profile. So I can maintain my profile and update it through the system so that I don't have to, send emails to the community foundation when my address changes or whatnot. But it also has the ability to capture all sorts of additional information that you might want to know about these individuals. For example, areas of interest. And one of the cool things with this is that you're allowing the donor to code their own profile and say what they are interested in. Then once they've done this, it makes it easy for you from a CRM point of view to target these individuals with focused information that would pertain to the areas that they are interested in. Okay, so any of the fields here will be fully configurable. You can have as many as you like or as little as you like on there. So then moving back to the home page, one of the main things that your donors will be doing is doing the new grant recommendations. So again, they click this button and they're able to fill out the form for the grant recommendation that they would like to do. The first thing that they would be asked to do is select the organization that they wish to give the money to. This could be done simply by typing in a name or a keyword, and it will provide you with a list of organizations that your community foundation has interacted with in the past to give them the ability to give a grant to one of these organizations. Another option would be previous grantees. So we know that a lot of your donors tend to give over and over to the same organization. So this would just populate the list with the organizations that this specific donor has made a grant recommendation to in the past, making it easy for them to just select the same organization over and over. And of course, if it is a brand new organization that your community foundation has never dealt with in the past, then we would just ask the donor to provide whatever details they do have about the organization, and then the staff would be able to complete the vetting of that organization once the request has been submitted. So I'm just going to go back to look up an organization, and I'll select this Nature Center. Then beyond there, I would be asked to provide additional details with regards to the grant recommendation itself. So one of the most important ones would be the fund itself. So which one of my funds do I want to use for this grant, and the amount of the request. So I'll select something, I'll do a smaller request now just to illustrate something a little bit later on. Then I have the ability to collect information such as the purpose or special instructions, and whether I want the gift to be anonymous or not. Once again, you could capture more or less details on this page as required by your organization. So once I go ahead and submit this request, now it's been complete and it's off to staff to vet that that request and actually pay out the grant if it meets your criteria. The donor can always go under My Grants to see the list of the statuses of all of their recommendations. So we can see that this first one for $1,000 is at this pending approval status already, which means that it has actually bypassed one of the review statuses because of the amount and the organization that it was given to. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when we're talking about the staff point of view. But let me show you some of the other features that are available here. So we have what we've called an interfund transfer. So this is just the ability for you to move money, or for the donor to move money from one of their funds to another. So I can select which money I want to move it from, and then the amount of money that I would like to move, and the target fund. Now, in the target fund, we actually can display funds that are entirely controlled by your community foundation. So they can say, actually, I want to take money out of my DAF and give it to you, and then you have full control over what happens with that money going forward. Or I could just move it to one of my other funds as well. So again, very simple form. They can submit their request and away you go. They're ready. The third main option that would be available is to actually give new money to the community foundation or to their DAF. So in doing a new gift, once again, they have the option of whether selecting from my fund or a community foundation fund that is entirely managed by the community foundation. So I can look it up, again, by typing in a keyword and selecting the fund that I want to give to. Or if I actually just want to give it to one of my own funds, I can just select it. And once again, I would enter the amount that I would like to add, and then I continue on to the payment. So in this screen, we have integrated with Stripe to accept credit card payments. So this would allow them to add money or to give money through credit card payments. Now we know that it's not always the case that the credit card would be used to make these gifts, but it is definitely one of the options that could be used to do that. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my home page and show you some of the other areas that we have available here. So we already quickly saw My Grants. It's just a list of the history that I've done. But the other one is My Funds, which of course is very important for your donors. So when you open up one of these guys, we'll be able to see the list of all my funds, whether I have one or multiple. I can see the amount of the balances as of when they've been updated, as well as how much is spendable. So the spendable balance can be calculated for you based on your rules. It might just be a percentage of the fund balance, or it could be the whole amount, entirely up to you to define that. But I can open up any of these fund records and see additional details. So in this case, we can see, fund numbers, the coding of the fund, what the purpose is for, along with all the different numbers that you might be interested in. So in this case, we have the fund balance, the spendable balance, but then we also see how much is tentative. So these are recommendations that I've submitted but haven't been fully vetted or approved yet. And we can also see other things like the fund activity down here. So this will allow you to get a more up-to-date view of what is happening with your fund. So you can see as of this date when the fund was last updated from your accounting system. We can see if I've made any gifts, if I've made transfers, if there's grants that have already been approved or pending grants that are out there, so that I can review that and get a more up-to-date view as to what my actual fund balance is at. We have the full capability of adding notes to any of these records, so you can add comments. It might just be for your own purpose or just ideas that you want to store there. Then we also have interested parties, so we could have a number of individuals that are associated with their fund. So the donor advisors, successor advisors, relationship managers, all of these can be linked to the fund so that you have a full picture of who has the ability to perform certain actions on behalf of this fund. And lastly, we would have fund statements so that you'd be able to give your donors access to all of their fund statements through the system. Again, providing information about the dates and the market value, ending market value, that sort of thing. But when they actually open up the fund statement, then you can provide them with all the details that might be necessary for them to view. So a full list of all of the activity that has happened on their fund in a given period of time. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my homepage and talk a little bit about the featured causes that we have available on here. So this is one of the ways in which we can easily highlight things to your donors to encourage them to give to their community. So there's two slightly different pieces of functionality here. So the one on the left is, as you can see on the button, it says View Projects. I'll come to that in a minute, but the one on the right is the featured causes. So again, your staff would be creating these guys on the right to encourage your donors to donate. And by selecting the Donate Now button, it has basically populated the organization for you, and then the donor can fill out their recommendation as they would have before. As they would have completed any of their grant recommendations. The other one that is called, in this case, Community Service, would give you the ability to view the project. So this is in this case, is the Community Service competitive grant cycle that has accepted applications from community organizations, and now you have published that information to the donors. So in doing this, the donors can see, oh, this is a great project. I think I really want to be involved with that. So I'm going to contribute to that grant. So I'd select again my fund and how much I want to contribute. And this would then mean that basically you have more of your own budget to spend on other projects within that program, because the donor has now contributed money to one of those applications. So it frees up your budget to do additional work. And quickly, I want to show you how easy it is for staff to do that. So as if you recall, I only have 2 projects currently listed here. So I'm going to switch over to my other browser that I have logged in as a staff person. And for them to simply publish things to the donor portal, they can review all of those applications that came in, and they say, okay, this is actually one that I do want to post to the donor portal. So I just check it off. The content has all been written by the applicant organization. So your staff don't have to do any of that if you don't want to. And then simply by doing that, I'm going to switch back to my donor portal and go back into that list of community service projects. And now we have the 3rd project that has been listed here. So it makes it really efficient for your staff to take the content that was written by their applicants and publish that to the donors to encourage them to give to them. Okay, so then moving on, there's a couple of other areas that I want to highlight for the donor portal before we move on to the staff side of things. We can have a full dashboard that's available that can include all sorts of charts and graphs to make it easy for the donor to see where they're spending their money. So for example, this guy here, we can see that this donor really likes the food pantry organization here over some of the other people that they've given to and whatnot. So lots of different graphical ways in which we can present the data to the donors, and you can actually click on these charts to interact with them to get into details. So here we can see that organization actually received 3 separate grants for different amounts from this donor. Additionally, under the More, we have other things like contact your advisor. So this again just allows the donor to contact their relationship manager or their advisor through the system to promote transparency. We have the full history of inter-fund transfers, along with the history of when they contributed to a competitive application, or they can get access to all of their fund statements this way as well. So they can see, since I have 2 funds, I can see that I have 2 statements for each of my funds listed here. Or we can allow them to further explore charities within their organization. Within your community foundation. So this lists all the organizations that you've dealt with, allowing your donors to search for ideas. If they're not sure who they want to give to, they can go through all these different organizations and have access to all the details they might want. Then from this page itself, you can actually do a new grant as well once you've found that organization. In this case, I'm going to just illustrate the other side of things. I'm going to select a grant that's larger than 3,000. So it's going to actually go through a 2-step approval process instead of a 1-step, and go ahead and submit that. So if I go back to my home page now and look at the grants, I've selected 2 for this Art and Nature Center. One of them was for $1,000, so that's already at the pending approval status, where the $5,001 is still at the staff review. Again, just to illustrate some of the automation capabilities that we can do in the system. So I'm going to go back over to my staff portal. So I'm looking at the screen now as a staff person from your foundation. So the people that are responsible for these donor requests can easily see which staff requests or interfund transfers are currently under review. I can open it up, review the information provided by the donor, and approve it, or I can go and or decline. But this can also be done in batch. So again, if these are organizations that you deal with on a regular basis, you don't have to dig too deep, you could also select multiple of the requests, and by simply clicking a button, it would approve all of those for you. Okay, so a way to really quickly batch those records once that's complete. And then in this case, there's a second step of approval, so we can open these up again and see everything that has come in here. Once again, review the information if necessary, and it might be a different staff person usually that would do the second approval, but they would have access again to all the information from the request. You can capture additional information. You might want to code these grants if that's something that you're interested in, and go ahead and pay that. So all of this is done automatically for you. For example, the payment has been created for you, a single payment for the full amount, and it's already been linked to the donor's fund, so you don't have to do any of this yourselves. It's all done automatically by the system. And once I've finished vetting it, all I have to do is really approve it, and then the integration would kick in and your payments would be sent to your accounting system to be processed there, along with all of your other requests. So one of the great things about having this in SmartSimple is that this can be combined with your grant making and your scholarship making. So all of the functionalities that you might use for those, you can also leverage for donors. So things like if a donor wants a progress report from the organization they're giving money to, you can easily do that. And then once the charity reports, we can present that information back to the donor for them to see the impact that their gift has had within their community. Okay. So that's about all I wanted to show you from the staff side of things. So I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint for a minute. Okay, so just to recap some of what we've talked about. So as SmartSimple is a platform solution, so it's not off the shelf, which means that we are not telling you how you have to build it, but we can configure the system to meet your specific business needs. It's a cloud platform, so fully configured. We don't do customization, which is one of the great things. It means that you don't have to have developers to administer the system. Just with some training, any of your staff members would be able to update the forms and add new fields or change the process. So it becomes quite easy for you to maintain it that way. As Jeff mentioned earlier, we have live phone support 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. And we maintain the strongest security profile in the market. So security has always been extremely important to us, and we follow several audits, including the SOC 2 audit, which is a very high standard of security. And that's it. So we have some time for some questions now.
All right. Thanks so much for showing us around the donor portal, Bob. So at this time, we'll open it up to anyone who has any questions for Bob of what he's just showed. And once again, please ask your questions by typing them into the Q&A or chat section of your Zoom webinar console. I'll just give you a few moments to type in your questions, and we actually have some questions ready right now. Great question. It is, does your platform provide access to GuideStar information?
Yes, absolutely. So we integrate with GuideStar, so we can pull specifically GuideStar charity checks, so we can pull all the information about their current status directly from GuideStar. That can be done through automation based on a request being submitted, or you can run it on demand by going to any of those organization profiles and just getting their up-to-date GuideStar information.
Excellent. Great question. Another question here, is there a reporting software you're using?
So you can do reporting right within SmartSimple. So all of these data fields that we've seen, or any that you have within SmartSimple, you can use for reporting purposes. So we have a full report builder within the system, our own system. And then it's very easy to export data as well. So we can export those reports, or we can use a technology called OData that would basically pull the data out of SmartSimple into your other software as well, that you can then further manipulate there if you so choose.
Excellent. Great question. Another question here, would all donor portals have the .smartsimple.com domain?
In most cases, yes. So if you're on one of what we call one of our shared servers, then you would have that as part of your domain. However, we do have the option of having a dedicated server. And when you go with that path, then you would be able to change the URL to be whatever you would like that to be.
Excellent. All right, there's another question here. Is the donor portal mobile friendly?
Absolutely. So our web interface is fully responsive, which means that if you're in a smaller browser, the content will adjust accordingly. Or if you're in a bigger browser, it will adjust again, which means that you can use it on your cell phone or on your tablet. And we also have native iOS and Android apps that we are constantly updating. So those would be an option as well. So some of the functionality could be configured right on the native app.
Great. We have another question here. I think it's a two-part question. So the first part is, we're a government agency using SmartSimple for grants management. What would the process be to add a donor portal? And the second part of the question is, can the donor portal have branding that differs from our grants management portal?
Right, great question. So the process to add the donor portal, since you're already using SmartSimple, you're aware that it's all role-based. So these donor portals, again, are just a new role. So we'd be able to create the new role with a new portal and additional functionality for your donors within your existing system. So in order to do that, we would just meet with you. We would scope out exactly the functionality that you want and how you would need it. And it would be very similar to your initial implementation, where we would define a statement of work and then build that out into your existing platform. And in terms of branding, we do have some capability of doing different things like different logos, for example, if you want that for your donor portal. So there are some capability there. In general, the colors will still be the same on both sides, but definitely some aspects can be changed specifically for the donor portal.
Excellent questions coming in. All right, there's one last one. Can you talk about the CRM capabilities?
Absolutely. Yes. So SmartSimple has a full CRM capabilities. So as I mentioned briefly, the coding of the donor portal file can be used to actually, send directed mail to them based on their specific areas of interest. So SmartSimple can automatically send out emails to those donors. It can target them, again, based on any of their attributes, as well as, so all sorts of communication. It really can track all of your interactions with your different donors. So as you saw, for example, that contact your advisor allows you to, if your staff has changed, then you still have access to any communication that had happened with a previous advisor, for example. So full CRM functionality available there.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks, Bob. I'm not seeing any more questions come in, so it looks like we're at that time of the hour where we call at the end of the webinar. But in the meantime, thanks so much for joining us today for our demo of donor portals for community foundations. If any of you have any additional questions or would like to schedule a more in-depth personalized demo catered to your community foundation specific challenges or requirements, feel free to contact us at sales@smartsimple.com or call us toll-free at 1-866-239-0991. I wish you all a great rest of the day and rest of the week, and look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.